bars in a rave. Man, I go hard like Santan.
Yo, evening, morning, afternoon, depending on when you listen to your podcast. But yeah, it's your boy LDN _ Shabs. Your boy Shabs here on hosting duties today. And yeah, man, what evening. It's late recording on Wednesday night. It's fresh off the game at Molineux versus Wolves. Expecting I don't know what we were expecting, to be fair, but I wasn't expecting that, if I could keep it a buck with you. So it's a bit disappointing. But before we get into that, I'm joined by my good brother German. What's up, German?
I'm good, bro. I'm good.
Yeah, cool. We just need to get straight into this. I ain't gonna do all the dialogue and the housekeeping. You know where we are. Hit us up on X, hit us up on Spotify and everywhere where you listen to good podcasts, all of that good stuff. But we just need to get into this, yeah. So apologies for if you're a new listener and you don't know the ground rules, but we're fresh off this result, yeah. I need to get into it. German. Big thing was the lineup, yeah. Played Wigan on Sunday. Have some injury difficulties that we're tussling and navigating at this point in the season. Some players were brought in obviously on Sunday and actually performed well. We've had some players out and the coach has had to do some different things with players, for example, using Saka centrally and whatnot. So there was a real interest in how we might line up today. We went with, and I'll just call it out, but we went with Raya in goal, obviously. Timber, Saliba, Gab, and Hincapié in defence, goalkeeper and defence. Yeah. In defensive mid, or in our double pivot, we had Zubi and Rice. We had Noni Madueke retain his place right wing. We had Martinelli start left wing. We had Saka starting in the 10 position for us today, and we had Gyökeres up front. Do you agree with that lineup, bro?
I like some parts of the lineup. I don't like some parts of the lineup. So I think at the beginning I was quite happy with Saka starting as the 10. I just felt like he would have more industry, more gal, more threat about him than the other options that we had on the bench, which includes Eze, of course. So, essentially it was a decision between Eze and Saka in regards to who's playing at the 10. But then you also have to think that Madueke then plays on the right, which I wasn't that big of a fan of. But he can be weird. Like sometimes he just stretches the pitch and that creates space, right? So I just thought Saka 10, yeah, I like it. I'm sorry, Gyökeres, I've been done with it, as you know. I'm completely done with this guy, and I've been done with him. I just don't think he adds value starting a game. He just doesn't the only value I can see him add is if we are in games and the games are getting a bit more stretched and he has energy and he's coming on against tired centre backs, he can help stretch the pitch and he can score later on. I think that's the value that he can provide. Like him starting games is just so redundant to me. I haven't seen it work well. This was probably the worst performance I've seen him play, and that is very difficult because it's been about 20 of them. But this was horrific. He couldn't hold the ball. He couldn't win the 50-50s. Even the ball, when the ball was in his favor, he couldn't hold it. It was just, I say non-entity, but he was a net negative in regards to when we had the ball and when we didn't have the ball. Like he just was of no use. At times you have to go long to get up the pitch quickly. Doesn't work. And it didn't help that both Martinelli and Madueke had. I think I view them both as players with high turnovers. And I think the constellation of that front three, like having three players that can't hold on to the ball in the front line, it's not the best mix. And I think Atata needs to look himself here, and he's to blame for that lineup. I would have liked to see like a Trossard or Eze on the left today would have been a good option. I think Gyökeres is the first mistake. He shouldn't start. The second mistake was for me. I think Miles Lewis-Skelly should have started probably at left back. Just thought this would be a game where we have plenty of the ball, getting Miles Lewis-Skelly on the ball. I did think Hincapié was good in the end, but yeah, I think this was a game for Miles. Miles, Eze, and Jesus probably to start. I think. Yeah, the other three in the front line, they're really disgraceful. Martinelli had like 2 or 3 really good opportunities. I think Madueke was a non-entity. He couldn't get past this guy all game. His sub came probably too late. Should have probably been a half time, to be honest. So I think all in all, performances went good, but then there's also the guys that we rate. They didn't play well today. Timber wasn't good today at all. I felt defensively he's always quite solid, but with the ball, his utilization of the ball, it was careless today. He's usually really good at these things, so it just wasn't good. And overall, the team performance, we looked so leggy. We looked, we looked, especially in the second half. In the first half, I think first 30, we could have killed them, even with this lineup. But second half we looked so leggy. We couldn't get our game off, and then we only had to play 1 or 2 good moves to score with the Hincapie goal. And I was like, okay, 2-0, I'll take that. We can just ride it and take it home. Ended up conceding very fast after, and then a fucking ridiculous mistake from Raya, to be honest, which adds to us. I think all the games we've dropped points in, we ended up, I think, apart from the Liverpool loss maybe, but all the other games I remember, like Sunderland, Aston Villa, what other game was there? The United, all these games we've conceded late on, and typically we're quite resilient in seeing games out, but we haven't seen these games out. So that is not good. And I think Arteta needs to look at himself from a lineup perspective today. I like Saka in the 10, but the other relationships on the pitch weren't as great. I'm not sure Zubimendi was needed to start the game today. I just felt like with saying all this, we could have easily won the game in the first half, and that's where the lack of efficiency and the lack of quality of the forwards really hampered us, because we only need 20 minutes to finish this game. And if Arteta gets that lineup right in the beginning, we'll probably win that game in the first half and it's done. And that's cost us today, as well as other things, of course. But I think that's probably my main gripe today.
Let's stay with the composition of the attack and the different relationships here, and let's go through them. I know we have to do both. We have to kind of assess them as a collective, as a trio.
Yeah,
and we probably, in fairness, have to throw Saka into that. Although Saka is not an issue at all today, but just in terms of, if we're talking about them as a collective, we have to look at the different components of the attack. To be fair, so but we also have to assess and dissect them a little bit individually. You touched on Gyökeres, so let's start the focal point. Yeah, really, a centre forward, a position which is of critical importance to us. And we had Gyökeres. He had 11 touches today, 1 touch in the box. He had, I can't remember him having any shots. I cannot remember him having any shots. So I'm just going to go with, and I'll check it in a minute, but I'm just going to go with he had no shots. He had 4 passes. Yeah. He played 65 minutes. Is that enough? And I know the answer to it, but is that enough? Why is that not enough in the context of where we are and what it is that we actually need from our centre forward? Just in case there's any, and I'm not asking you to answer for me, I'm asking you to answer just in case there's anyone who's still campaigning for the importance and the significance of Gyökeres or a player like him because he makes runs and he stretches play and gives verticality. Just help to enlighten us a little bit on why that is not enough.
I get the stretch and play thing, but I think that feeling is overplayed. I don't think his runs are that good to really feel like his teammates can find him with them. His movement is bad. His movement in the box when it's a more settled situation, it's just not smart enough. It's not proactive enough. It's not enough anticipation in where the ball will land. We're talking about where the ball will land for him to score. Jesus, the guy doesn't even know where the ball will land when it's getting kicked from a goal kick. Like, he just positions himself so wrongly. That's why either can't hold the ball a lot of times, he can't control it, or people just nip in front of him because he just can't anticipate where the ball lands and he can't really trap it. So I think, we look at it as a collective. I think the only way he can work if the game is a bit more open. If there is someone quite physical next to him, we've seen it in some games of Havertz. I think it's 2 or 3 games where we've seen it with Havertz, where Havertz just via his moving kind of disrupts the defensive line, and then Gyökeres can kind of feed off that. And Havertz is more forward looking with his passing than I think Eze and Odegaard, because they're not as direct in their approach, I think. So I think that helps Gyökeres a bit, but then even then, he didn't look good in these games. Like he's just not looked good. I think there's been maybe 1 or 2 games that I felt like, oh, he's played okay. Like I don't remember a game when I actually felt like he has played well, like actually playing football well. Like scoring a goal doesn't mean that you perform well. Like it is, to me, and we should probably talk more holistically, the whole front three today. But to me, this Gyökeres signing has just tremendously failed, and we need to cut our losses in the summer. It's just not happening. The only way he can add value, the only way he can add value is for me off the bench. If like Havertz has started or Jesus has started, and he comes on,
he had no shots today. I've just checked. He had no shots today. He played in 65 minutes of football. He played 45 minutes against Wigan, coming off the bench when we were 4-0 up. He had no shots in that half against Wigan. He had no shots having played the full 90 minutes against Brentford last Thursday. So in his last 3 games, he's had no shots, basically. That's well over 2 hours of football, 2.5 hours of football, maybe nearly 3 hours of football, no shots on target, It stinks, to be honest with you. It absolutely stinks, and it's nowhere near enough. I'm trying to remember what the reverse fixture was like against Wolves, who played them not too long ago, actually.
It was shit. It was at the Emirates. I think we scored.
I think we won 2-0, didn't we? But
2-1, I think it was.
Or 2-1, okay. So yeah, but it wasn't great. But Gyökeres is I think most people are exhausted of him now, and I think whichever way you want to slice it, being patient, being objective, being generous, and all that, it's just, we just need to all call it what it is. Like this, he's not good enough as a player. His signing has not been good enough. He is so far below the technical level, and in terms of like the physical level, it's not enough of an upside.
He's actually below that as well, the physical level.
Yeah, it's not. Well, that's what I'm saying. In the physical level, even if you were to say there are positives about what he can offer, which is highly debatable, it doesn't outweigh the, like, any potential benefits don't outweigh the cost. You know what I mean? So when you talk about like a net nil or net negative, actually a net nil probably wouldn't even be that bad, but a net negative is disgraceful in that regard. But to be fair, we've said what we need to say about it. He's touched on. I don't really want to talk about him any longer than we have.
You can skip about him.
Yeah. Let's just hone in on Madueke, who again you touched on a little bit, but Madueke today, again had a frustrating game. He had a really frustrating game. We can talk about him and the chaos. I was saying before the game, I don't like it, but I can understand why. When you're going up against like a structured low block defense, I can understand why chaos is important, because it has the potential to disrupt and destabilize. But it's only important if you capitalize on it. It's only effective if you capitalize on it. I think, in short, he just didn't capitalize on any of it today. He didn't do enough or demonstrate enough quality to actually make anything happen at all. And in terms of take-ons, in terms of finding a man with passes, I just didn't see enough based on what he put out in the 65 minutes or so that he was on the pitch to say, yeah, actually, this is good enough. No chances created. I can't remember.
take-on.
I can't remember take-ons. There's one
Maybe it
time
was
where
the right touch and got round him, but then his
yeah,
foot cross was just like, what's going on
yeah.
here?
That happened once that I can remember, and that's exactly what I was about to say. So, apart from that, I can't remember anything else of note for him. So again, is there anything specific that you want to delve into or highlight as far as his performance goes?
I think it needs to be, I think we need to probably look at the season more general, and today was a bad performance, and we got punished for a bad performance. Again, I don't think Wolves did much. They didn't need to do much. They scored one very good goal, and then one goal was a clear mistake from Raya. But it's more about the team and their responsibility, and they didn't take care of business today, and that's the reality. We went 1-0 up in the 5th minute. We could have killed that game in the first half, and you don't always have the opportunity to kill a game in the first half, but Wolves look quite vulnerable in that 20-30 minute spell, and we lack that killer instinct to take care of them. I think as outside of Saka and Rice in some parts, but I also feel like Rice could have done more today. But outside of Saka, I think and Rice to some degree, and Hincapié, I think that none of them really played well. Like Gabriel always plays well, and Saliba always plays kind of well. So I think I take them outside of it. But I think Raya, the goal is on him in the last minute, and it's similar to the Aston Villa thing as well, where I felt like was it the Aston Villa goal? There was one of the goals late on where I felt like he could have done better. Like I think he's obviously a proactive keeper. Just you need to keep your nerves as well. I think he probably is the most nervous in our back line, and sometimes we concede goals because of his nerves. So I think holistically we just need to look at the season and say, this team needs to recharge their batteries. They need to take care of business. Next 2 games are critical. We got Spurs on Sunday, and after that is Chelsea. If we don't take care of business in these next 2 games, it could look quite dark for these guys with regards to how we already know we've been 5-6 points clear, and the media hasn't supported us. So we know what it's going to look like when
gets to 2 points and 1 point.
2 points or 1 point, God forbid City are ahead of us and we have to go to the Etihad to win it. Do you know what I mean? So these type of things, I mean, for me, the race is never straightforward. We could have made it a lot more comfortable given how many points we have dropped in the last 4 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks. Actually, we've dropped plenty of points that is unserious. But you saw me in a group I was talking about that. I think it's also a big part of like going forward in all 4 of these competitions. I think it's a consequence of that. That in that January period in particular, that we in some games just couldn't get the job done. We looked leggy. We looked tired to me. The games against Chelsea required our key players playing. Some of the games in the Champions League required our key players playing. That fatigue wears, and I feel like we look like a team that are fatigued at the moment. But that's not an excuse. That is the reality of what we're dealing with, and trying to find reasons as to why we don't have that spring in our step right now. That doesn't mean that we are fine with that. I'm saying they need to find our second gear, or they need to find those solutions, get through these next couple of games, and then have another go at it. I think after Spurs we have a whole week, so that game is critical to get back to winning ways. But yeah, today it's a horrendous result when you look at it, all things considered. They're last in the league. You're 2-0 up. It's just horrendous. But the response has to be empathetic. We need to be going on a winning run. That's the only way we can respond now.
Do you think there's if I'm playing devil's advocate and the coach has to hold some criticism, but if I'm playing devil's advocate and arguing the other side of the coin for the attack in particular, and starting with Gyökeres, with Marino out injured, with Havertz out injured currently, Jesus, who's not the most reliable in terms of like fitness, availability, and physicality. What alternatives do you think he had to starting Gyökeres up front today? Like, and what options should he have gone with? Knowing how bad Gyökeres has been, what alternative should he have gone with?
Like, I can't lie. I think something like Tross at 9 can work. Like we've seen this before. Tross playing in the 9. I'm not the biggest fan of I say I'm not the biggest fan. I'm not a fan of Madueke, but Saka 10 today, I was like, yeah, play Madueke there. He's got to play some games. And I do think he's better than Gyökeres easily. He can sometimes be a threat. But like Trossard 9 could have been a solution. I think Eze on the left could have been a viable solution today. Martinelli, Noni, and Gyökeres, I just don't see the point. But yeah, I think as a left wing needs to start being a thing. We need Eze to start playing games. Clearly, Odegaard and Havertz have fitness issues. So outside of those, in the front line or in the forward minded players, who can we rely on? We can rely on Saka. I don't think we can rely on Eze just yet. But out of all the other forwards, I think he's probably has the most quality. So these are the players you need to get into the team to play, in my opinion. So Eze and Saka need to be a shoehorn. We need to get Eze into some form. It was positive that Saka played well. I hope he didn't pick up an injury today. And then I would say using Trossard, I think Trossard always has something to give. And yeah, quite frankly, viewing better than Madueke, Martinelli, Gyökeres, even Jesus as the 9. I think he's better than those guys. So that might be a solution. And I think they might have to think about taking Ethan back and getting Ethan back. Of course, when he went on loan, we still had Havertz just coming back from injury. We had Marino being a very good utility player. Like if Marino comes on today, I don't think we drop points in this game, which is funny to say. But those guys are just not as available to us as we'd like him to be. And we sent Ethan on loan with the premise of him not playing here because those guys will be available. Right, that's not the case right now. So maybe we need to take Ethan back and reintegrate him because there are minutes for him to be played here potentially. But doesn't look like Arteta's open to that. But I think we should be open to that because what we had on the bench today after Saka went off, it was going forward. There was nothing. Too many of our forward players are struggling, have niggles, and so I think Ethan coming back might be an option. Which you can play as the right winger. Imagine Ethan right wing or Ethan central and Saka. They can interchange. I think that dynamic would be cool. So yeah, I'd look at Ethan potentially coming back and Trossard. I think we need to try and get this guy back into form.
Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna move us away from the attack. I'm gonna move us away from some of the points that you've touched on and just reflect on the midfield composition. When I say midfield composition, I'm talking specifically about the double pivot.
Yeah.
And one of the criticisms, I think Zubi has been a good signing. I think he's been a good signing overall and on the balance of things. And I think, there are many things about his game which are fantastic. But there are some criticisms, and those criticisms have grown louder as the season has gone on, A, and B, in the context of away games. Those criticisms really have been centered around verticality, and I will say specifically central verticality, how he's able to progress play and how he's able to help us in terms of what he does with the ball through the middle. For me personally, there is I do see it, and I think some of the criticism is valid, but I do also feel that some of it isn't helped by our setup and the way that we build and the passages of play as well. I think that contributes to a little bit of the problem with the patterns of play that we tend to just continue to default to, and they become too predictable, I think, over the course of a season if we don't change them up. But also Rice, who again, very solid, I think was definitely one of our better performers today, has been one of our better performers across the course of the season. But the argument is that in most games where we are the dominant side, the argument is that we do not need both of these guys to start for us in a double pivot, and that potentially a different option would be beneficial. Where do you sit on that spectrum of things, both including the criticisms about Zubi and his performances away from home, but also you know, variation in terms of that double pivot selection?
I think I have a game by game, view on this. Like, I think Wolves, don't necessarily think Zubimendi needs to start that game. I think Rice can start as the 6, and if you have Odegaard there and maybe a Havertz or something, like, I think I understand the point around, the Premier League's very much focused on second balls. I say focus, but it's a huge part of the game. So I think, and I do think people underestimate how important they are to control games. When you win the second balls, you dominate the game, and one of the reasons is what we've been so far the top performing team in the league is because we dominate and control these situations really well with both of them in the pivot. That being said, that doesn't necessarily need to be played every game, and I think like a game like Wolves away or Wolves at home, or some other games in the league, like if we're playing West Ham at home or something like that, I don't think that we need to be and Rice both playing. When we play someone like Aston Villa, who have a physical midfield, and we need to try compete as best as we can physically, then I understand it. But I think different games require different solutions, and today the solution was definitely not having 3 guys that turn over the ball, leading the line. When we're going to be facing the deep block. To be honest, again, I don't think Wolves had much, but it's for a team that's so defensively astute to give away 2 goals like that. I say give away. One was obviously a worldie, but you can defend that better. To give away 2 goals like that, it's really not good enough, and they're falling short of the standards that they've set themselves. Talking about verticality, I think that's a criticism for both Zubimendi and Rice. I think both are in some ways players that want to control the game when they have the ball, that they're sometimes turned down forward passing opportunities for the sake of ensuring that we are remaining in control of having the football, and things are settled and the games are not getting frantic. I think both have that habit, and I'd like them to see or play forward more. I don't necessarily. I know a lot of people will say this is Arteta, this is the coaching, but we always see different interpretations of players when they're coming to different roles into the team. Like Saka in the 10 today was very different to Eze in the 10 or Odegaard in the 10. Like, it really comes down to the player and the player taking responsibility. I've seen Rice punch it through the lines and like really take the game forward. I think players need to take responsibility. That's the big word for me. Responsibility. Take responsibility and be accountable. And Arteta, you need to be smarter. Your team selections need to be smarter. I think today was a poor team selection. I liked aspects of it, but retrospectively, I have to look back and say, starting that front 3, it didn't work. Quality-wise, we had the openings there. They couldn't finish that. They couldn't make the most of the openings. And when the game got bitty, they couldn't keep hold of the ball. And that's where we lost the game. That's our set on it. I think both Rice and Zubi don't have to play together, but both of them need to take responsibility if they're playing with each other or on their own. And I think they need to do more of that going forward.
We saw we saw Norgard be utilized. You could argue against the level and quality of the opposition, but we saw his interpretation.
The intention was still different,
Exactly, and he was playing in a way.
Player and the interpretation point that I'm making,
exactly. No, we're saying the same things. His interpretation was very different, and he played in a way which was very. When this pass is on, I'm not going to mess around too much. I'm going to play it direct. I'm going to find it, and he was playing some lovely arrowed passes into Martinelli, for example, on the run. Different game, different setup from Wigan. Different circumstances, but again, like, he came in, and again, you could argue that he's predominantly a defensive-minded midfielder. He's predominantly known for what he does, kind of off the ball, without the ball, more so than on the ball. But we saw something there which is different and which is nuanced. we have the potential. We didn't start with Eze today, but there is the potential in a game like today against Wolves where absolutely Eze could have a starting berth which is deeper in midfield. I know it's not what he's known for. I know he's probably, in terms of his best position for Arsenal, it's on the left, is what I believe anyway. But
Yeah, I think so too, yeah.
we can afford to take that kind of risk today. Something that we haven't done, and we nearly saw it, but for an injury crisis, was Miles in midfield. Miles is someone that can penetrate both with his passing, but also with his runs and his movement. So you know that is something that we. But my frustration is that we don't attempt these things when we have the opportunity to attempt it, and then there hit moments where we actually need to do it, where actually this is what is required to kind of break the game or change games or make them go in our favor. But because they haven't been trialed throughout the safety in the buffer zone, then they're not attempted in moments where they could actually make a difference for us. And that is frustrating. It's frustrating for me that Miles remained on the bench for the entirety when actually he's someone that could have assisted with progression and ball retention and keeping dominance, but also verticality through the center to help us dominate the game, because I think it was a game of two halves, and
Yeah.
we were better in the first half, but the second half
Yeah,
came
we were definitely better in the first half. It was too easy in the first half, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, there are things, and yeah, I never thought I'd say this, but Marino, we absolutely miss him in terms of and Havertz is a bit different, you know. I think Havertz has very clear usage in this side, and I think Havertz today would have been decisive for us in one way, shape, or form. He would have been decisive for us, even if that was just about Wolves' difficulty picking him up. But again, Gyökeres, what pisses me off is that it's just all too easy and all too predictable for the centre back. And if you're a centre back in the league coming up against Gyökeres, you know your day is going to be piss easy. You know, it's the easiest 90 minutes of football that you'll have probably this season. You know, whereas Havertz is different. But Marino, coming back to Marino, he penetrates for us and he dominates and creates movement through his movement. He creates space and opportunities through his movement, you know, and that's something that disrupts sturdy blocks, and that's something that we are seemingly missing, you know. And again, like, I worry about the composition of this midfield for what we have left moving forward, because we don't have enough variation in terms of the profiles. Well, in fact, that's not true. We do have a lot of variation in terms of the profiles, but our coach hasn't been brave enough, or maybe hasn't wanted to explore the potential of these different options and different profiles. He seems to be fixed and set on a double pivot of Zubi and Rice in the majority of games. And I hear that you want your best midfielders to play, you want your best players to play all the time, but it's too predictable. It's becoming all too predictable for me, and I think something needs to give. You know.
Yeah, I get that.
I just want to ask a couple of things in with our defense. We had an amazing start to the season, albeit injuries. You know, in terms of our clean sheets and our defensive record, we were fantastic. You know, very low XG conceded. We weren't really giving away chances and whatnot. That has changed somewhat, especially in the last couple of months. And we're seeing, not that we're giving away massive chances, but we're conceding a lot more goals. We've definitely regressed to some form of norm in terms of our defensive performances. Is this something that you think we need to worry about in the grand scheme of things? Do you think this is about fatigue, tiredness? Is it a mental issue, or do you think there's something tactically that
I mean, it's probably a mixture of all things, you know, not overtly being one area, but you know, some of it is tactical, you know, in terms of like the selection and, you know, players in the right positions and players also executing. So like execution is a big part always of an application. Some of it is probably mental as well. Like there is definitely, I think, that hurdle to get over it, and there's also mental fatigue. I think coming into these games and playing lots and lots of games. Um, and there's also like physical fatigue for sure. I've mentioned that earlier. I firmly believe that physical fatigue plays a big part in how, in some periods of the games, we are relatively flat, and we look a bit tired. But you know, these things are these are the things that you deal with when you're going for a season, and competing on all fronts. So you know, should that prevent us from winning the league? No. Is this gonna make some games more difficult than others? Yes. And I think just living within that reality is what I think. You know, I hope more Arsenal fans can come on board with, but I just don't see that happening. I don't think that type of reasoning is is wanted, or you know, people want to look into that right now. At the moment, you know, people are desperate to win, which I completely get. And I'm desperate to win as well. So, you know, they just want the team winning. They want the team to be 10, 12 points clear, so they don't have to worry about City breathing down the neck. But the reality again is different. Like they're 4 points behind us, they can cut, or 5 points behind us, they can cut it down to 2. And living in that reality is what we have to do more, rather than that 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 picture perfect idea that we have in mind. And the end of the day, we can't influence the results. We can support the team. We can try to push them on, which is what we should do. But they have to deliver. That's the be all and end all. I think that's why I'm probably more relaxed than other guys. You know, doesn't mean I'm not disappointed or angry about results, but you know, the naked reality is that, you know, I don't influence the results. They need to get it over the line. So, and if I rate these players, then I have to trust them to try to figure it out. So it's down to them.
Where do you with the result, people lost their heads in the chat. Players lost their heads on the pitch. Yeah, fans look like they lost their heads in the stadium, but some of the man them lost their heads in the chat. There was turmoil in that chat. I'm big on keeping what happens in the chat in the chat, but I did have to tell someone to calm down and not to swear when they when they're talking to me. I had to say, listen, don't swear when you're talking to me. I don't know. I'm seasoned in it. I'm seasoned. I've been here before, innit? I've been here many a times. I've seen many a title fight, not just Arsenal title fights, many a title fight. I don't recall very many league seasons where eventual champions run away with it. I get why Arsenal fans feel anxious and want the safety cushion. I get why the safety cushion is important for us psychologically as a fan base. But I just think that in terms of going for titles, we have to be seasoned for the dogfight. It's a dogfight. And it might not go the way where we just run away with it and we get a 5-point gap, 6-point gap, 7-point
Yeah,
gap.
yeah.
It might be a 1-2 point, it might be a slimmer margin. I think some of us have to be content with that reality. We are declining at a moment in the season where City look like they've finally found some form and are starting to pick up points. We can't be losing our heads every time that we get a disappointing result. And make no mistake about it, I'm very disappointed with the result. I'm very disappointed with the manner of the performance. I'm very disappointed with the approach. But I've not dropped my head in terms of it's game over, the titles. I'm like, we're 5 points clear. It's not good enough, but before we kicked the ball today, we were 4 points clear. You know what I mean? So we do need to be measured. We've got City who are playing Newcastle. A lot of people are looking at it like a routine win for City, and that might be the case. But
Yeah,
it's
they
football,
they could easily win that 2-3-0. They could also
Yeah.
go that 1-1. You know,
They
the
could
Premier League is
also-
unpredictable.
The
Yeah.
Premier League is so unpredictable. It's football. Newcastle will have some swagger off the back of their resounding victory today. So it's football. It's very unpredictable. Even if City pick up points against Newcastle, they could then go on, such as the league, they could then go on and drop points in the very next game. They could win the next couple of games and then drop points when it's least expected, in the way that we've had a bit of a decline as well. So it's still, I don't think Arsenal fans should be talking about being out of it until we're legitimately out of it. We're not out of it. We're still very much in control. Even though I heard some narrative that the dynamic shifts and it's now in City's hands. It's not in City's hands. They have a game in hand, but we're 5 points clear. If they win their game in hand, the gap closes to 2 points. That doesn't put it in City's hands. It still very much puts it in our hands. We have to play them. You know, it places greater significance on our head-to-head with City, but it's not something for us to be down and out about. And I think I just want to encourage fellow listeners and Arsenal fans to just err on the side of caution with all of this title over talk, man. It's not over. We have to become a bit more resilient to what title races actually look like. Like, title races go neck and neck. Like, if you think about the Liverpool and City season, 97, 98 point season, or was it 98, 99 points? Like it goes neck and neck. Like, there are many seasons where the title was decided in the last game of the season. There are many seasons where the title was decided in the last 2 or 3 games, you know, so it's not a given that teams actually just go and run away with it. And I think, yes, we've seen it last year with Liverpool, but they still didn't lift the trophy officially until May. We've seen it, you know, with City, but we don't. It's not the norm, you know, and I think we shouldn't forget that. So I just do want to remind people to err a little bit on the side of caution, and you know, it's not good enough, but we do have to back these players to pick it up, and this coach who is trying us all. He needs to find a bit of a different solution. He needs to find a range of different solutions to actually change the way that we play, change our approach to games, because playing with this jeopardy is not good enough. We can't be having games where we're just having 3 shots on target and scoring 2 goals. You know, that's just not good enough. We don't put the sword to teams in the way where we blow them out of the water. The way that we approached Wigan on Sunday is how we should have approached Wolves today, you know, and I get that it's a different context, it's different quality opposition. I'm not saying the result should be the same. I'm saying the approach to performance should have been the same, you know, in terms of going for it and trying to put the game beyond doubt early, and then you can afford to just control the game and not get into these high stakes things. I think I rue the fact that Trossard wasted time, that we had other players wasting time, you know, as soon as we got into the latter parts, still with
I think Trossard was actually finished though. I think that, I mean, ultimately that Jesus giving that ball away and Trossard's getting concussed cost us. But yeah, he was actually concussed.
Yeah. So yeah, it's let's see what happens. But for you, any kind of final thoughts on like the title race as things stand?
No, man, it's still game by. My approach has always been game by game. You know, we've drawn this game, which is a horrific result. Next game is now Spurs. We need to win it. Yeah,
big facts. All right, look, a couple questions, couple listeners' questions, and that. So we've got Jimmy, big up Jimmy, original Jim Bob. He said, where do you think the issues lay for this poor run of form in the league? We've only won 2 of our last 7 games in the Prem.
I think we mentioned it, right? We said,
yeah,
a mixture of all these things, I think.
Yeah, that's fair. Asir_Li. They said, which manager should we be looking at if the current one doesn't deliver?
I'm not prepared to have these conversations. You know, we've got to be in all competitions and we need to win.
Cool. Finally, we got a question from King Keshi 13. Big up King Keshi. Fires us a question every week. We say, evening lads, I don't know about you, but I'm not convinced of Zubimendi. Where's Lewis? We say, I'm not convinced about Zubimendi. Spanish 6'8". I thought we would be getting a super clean technical player. Great pass selection, breaking lines, good under pressure, tempo setter, etc., but not seeing enough of any of those qualities. We have touched on it, but is there? I suppose not covering every aspect of what he's saying here. Is there any additional thoughts that you've got in relation to this whole Zubimendi thing?
No, I think it's the only thing I'd say is that we are very reliant on Zubimendi and Rice being fit. So that puts greater emphasis on them. I preferred when we had that balance, not preferred, but because I think the quality wasn't as good. But I preferred last year when we had Partey, Jorginho, Rice. Like we could play one of them will play with Rice typically, and we could swap them out, and they would have different characteristics. Whereas I get your points around losing Skelly maybe in midfield. I don't quite know if he's ready to play that dual role. I think at the moment physically he doesn't quite look up to it for me to cover large spaces. That's my main issue with him in midfield at the moment. But I think we are midfielder short there in profile to help them out. So I don't think Zubi needs to start every game. That's my thing. I think he's a good player. And I think he's a very good player actually, but he's also struggled. Still his first season in England, I think. I don't think he's ever played as many games in this amount of cadence in his career, but playing at Sociedad and not probably playing in Europe every weekend, FA Cup and Carabao Cup. So, I think he's struggling with that. And then also the pace of the game sometimes and the physicality of the game. I think overall he's fine, but like that coming every 3 days, I think it's taken its toll on him. I think his level has dropped a little bit in recent games, in particular away games. He struggles a bit more. Home he's better. So, we just need another option there in midfield, I think, to help them out.
Is there a marked divergence in his performances at home versus his performances away from home?
I think it's difficult to tell. We've got quite strong away form, apart from this game, obviously, which was a bad result. But we've got quite strong away form, and he's been part of that. I think he's just at home. He's shown more. Like the Villa game, he was really good, and there's other games at home where I just felt like he played really well. So I think away probably hasn't been as great. So
yeah, fair enough. All right, and then I'll ask this last one. So, evening, fellas. Sometimes our technical level drops badly, passes under or overhit, and we can't keep the ball. Why is that? Is it the players we have not being technically elite, or is it a bigger issue like fatigue from playing so much football and not being at their best every match? And again, we have touched on this a bit earlier on with different points that you've made, different points that I've made. But do you have like an overall assessment of why our technical level drops? I think for me, my frustration is sometimes we are seeing very simple passes, 10-yard passes, 15-yard passes just being mishit or knocked out of play, or just not going. And I'm not saying that football is perfect, so that players need to be perfect for every pass, for every action, but it can be really frustrating and destabilizing already when we're playing in these games of I tell you why it matters, because we have such fine margins. So in a game like today where we don't build frequent enough attacks, or where we don't sustain attacks, you've got an opportunity or some momentum actually to take the game to Wolves, and then someone knocks the ball out of play, or someone under hits a pass and turns it over, and that becomes more frustrating and more glaring because the game is played on such fine margins. I think that's my frustration, but I don't know what your take is on that.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a mixture. I think sometimes there's also selection, like what players are being picked for which game, and who they're facing, how they can. Today Noni was really poor. Then some games he'll probably get his game off, and you'd be like, oh yeah, Noni's been good. Like Martinelli, I think is technically, I think he's got a good touch, but he's not like the most. He's not the most technical player, but he's typically a lot better at retaining the ball. Sorry, today was really bad, like some stupid giveaway. So I think it is a bit of both. I think, as I said, I think physically and mentally, you can see a bit of the fatigue kicking in over the last 4 or 5 weeks. Surprising, we've only lost one game in that period. We need to now pick it up, and I think the team has enough of technical quality to do that. You know, we should, like, we're not drawing 2-2 with Wolves because we have a lack of technical quality. We're better than Wolves, and we have more technical quality than them. So that's the game we played today, and we didn't win. So, you know, it's beyond that, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, fair enough. That's it, brother. That's it for listeners' questions, man. And I think we've got to leave it there, to be honest with you. Very disappointing result today. We've got a big game on Sunday. We need to just go out and recover. You know, the reaction to this performance is you know, I need it to be as loud as the noise today, you know, following on from this bad result. So yeah, we need to go out and we need to show up. We need to blam Spurs to oblivion, and yeah, we need to we need to get our lick back, because these guys are starting to take the piss. But yeah, man, bro, I'm gonna leave it at that. It's been good chopping it up with you. Like, share, subscribe, check us out on the Patreon, all of that good stuff. But for now, peace out. See you on the other side.
Bless.
Yo, when I spit bars in a rave, man, I go hard like Santan.